You're listening to the Yin and Yang Show, a marketing and sales conversation providing strategic and tactical advice about inbound sales and marketing. And now, here are your hosts, Lindsay Kelly and Brian Signorelli.
Hey, welcome back to the Yin and Yang Show. Thank you for joining us again this week, whether you are Facebook Living or listening later after the fact. Thank you for being here. I'm Lindsay from Prospect Builder, as always, joined by my buddy Sig.
Hey, Lindsay.
How is HubSpot Landia today?
Oh, it's great. I actually got a chance to go up to our satellite office in Portsmouth this week and visited one of our agency partners up there, Raka Creative, and spent half a day Tuesday with that team, which was very cool.
Cool.
My phone is falling to the side here again. If it doesn't stay put, but we'll just keep going with that. So that was cool. And then I got to spend the afternoon Tuesday and part of Wednesday with the Portsmouth or Port Spot team.
Nice.
It was really cool because I mentioned this to somebody yesterday, and I said, "Yeah, it's like it felt like I was at HubSpot only at Portsmouth." They're like, "Well, yeah, you were at HubSpot in Portsmouth." I'm like, "No, but the office even felt the same.
Same, yeah.
Badges, same kind of layout, same kind of furniture, whatever, design, all that stuff." So it was cool to be up there, and I can't believe it, but our Portsmouth team was a result actually of an acquisition a number of years back of a company called Great Island Technologies. And that team now handles is mostly our COS migrations.
Okay.
But they were originally acquired as part of the whole COS launch. That team was only, I think, 3 or 4 people when we acquired them, but it's up over 90 people now in that office. So it's pretty amazing how fast they've grown. It's a really cool place. If you're ever in Portsmouth, they've got a cool office right on the water there, and I would encourage you to go check it out and say hi to the team.
I will. Awesome. You guys have offices all over the place now. It's really cool to see. Really cool to see.
Berlin's next.
Nice. Oh, I volunteer to go there.
Anytime you want.
Right?
Yeah. It was a big play in data security is kind of table stakes in Germany. You got to have data centers physically in the country. So Germany is one of the strictest countries on data privacy and all that stuff. So not the topic of this podcast.
No.
It's not quite as enthralling as blogging. But yeah, I'm really excited about today's show. Blogging and structural
formatting
guidelines and formatting for a blog post. It's oldie but a goodie, super important. It's kind of the backbone of content marketing and inbound marketing. So I'm excited to jump in and talk through this with you today. And
the only reason I really wanted to make sure that we covered this today was because I went through the training. You guys have some modules that we can go through as partners and as people who are regular customers of HubSpot going it on their own. Mm-hmm. And it's this great little kind of overview of really what's important in the formatting, what you're supposed to be doing, how to optimize. And I watched it because I just haven't watched anything like that in so long. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I actually learned a couple things. There's some new things that come out, new statistics that show different placements of calls to action and what works better in different portions of the blog, where you should change some formatting stuff. And so I wanted to kind of walk through the essential list of what a successful blog should look like.
I like it.
Yes. So, and I mean, people sometimes say, "Oh, well, I'm blogging. It's good. I've got all kinds of blogs out there." And then you go and look at it and you're like, as a user, that looks really intimidating. It's this huge, long thing just of all text with nothing broken up. Or it's like this itty bitty little paragraph and you're like, that just told me nothing. So I want to talk about like what Google sees when it sees this stuff. I want to talk about really what a business blog is meant for and their different aspects. I took notes, and of course I did. I took notes, you do stats. So basically, when you're looking at a blog, you got two goals with it as a business. You want, and I keep looking down here to the Facebook people. I'm sorry, Facebook people. It's built to track new visitors. Like you have to attract new visitors so that strangers who are looking to solve a pain or a problem are able to find you and say, well, this is an industry expert. They're giving me all this great information. The blog posts are very relevant. The topic of the blogs is for another day. This is the formatting aspect, but Just make sure it's educational, and they will come. It's like build it and they will come.
Right.
And the second one is to make sure you're converting those folks into leads so that your sales team can actually work them. Get them into the funnel, work them through, and that's really what a blog is all about. So, the reason you want to get a nice, consistent blog out there is because you're going to be able to create a lot more indexable sites, pages for Google to find. People are going to look to it eventually. Like, I look every week for certain podcasts that I listen to. I miss it if it's not there. So the consistency aspect is really important. And then, you hear folks like Marcus Sheridan who talk about how a blog saved his business, like legitimately. Like, they were a pool company. They were on the brink of shutting down, and Marcus was like, what can I do? And so he turned to inbound marketing and was able to answer questions that people were looking for online and essentially save his business, because he is the most trafficked pool company now, I believe, in the world, because he just answers questions. So let's talk about how to create an effective blog post so that you can hit your sales goals, because that's what it's all about, hitting your sales goals. So elements of a successful blog. Pick a topic and a title, make sure that it's very educational, and make sure that it supports the next step in the journey. So if I'm like, okay, I need to find somebody to retile my floor. I don't know anything about it. Let me do some research. And I find this great blog about, the top 5 things you need to know before you start retiling your floor. Oh, good. Well, this is educating me. I'm reading it. I read it. I get all the way to the end of it. And then I go, that's awesome. What do I do next? And there's nothing. There's no phone number. There's no give us a call. I have to do more work to go back up and find a phone number. There's no next, hey, you can also read this blog about best way to care for the floor once it's in. So you have to think about all these different things within the blog. You can't just throw something out there and expect the leads to rain down. You have to put work into it. So make it educational. Think like the person who's looking. So if the person that wrote this blog is the owner of this tile company, and they know everything there is to know about tile and how to lay it and what to use and the different textures, what environments it works well in. I am basically, let's say I'm a stay-at-home mom. I don't know the first thing about it, but I need to figure it out. I need to educate myself so I can have a conversation with this person. All right? So think about explaining these top 5 things in a way I'm going to understand. You throw jargon at me that I don't understand, you're going to make me feel foolish, because I'll be like, well, should I know that? I don't know that. So you have to think about it in those terms. Talk to the person that you're trying to reach. Target that person. I used to say that all the time. Like, I walked into the dealership that I worked for day one, and they're like, we're going to have a meeting about the NPS program, and then we're going to talk about blah, blah, blah. Well, the CPC versus a lease, and I'm looking at these people going, what are you talking about? I have no idea what this stuff is. And I literally raised my hand in the middle of a meeting and said, what is MPS? They're like, that's the program. I'm like, well, does it stand for something? They're like, everybody knows what it stands for. It's Managed Print Services. And I'm like, what are Managed Print Services? What does that mean?
I thought you said NPS, like Net Promoter Score.
No. Although I am working on another project right now with bringing information from eAutomate into HubSpot with all these net promoters that are so. Anyway, so it's timely that you say that. I'm literally working on that with my buddy Gary from CEO Juice right now. But anyway, back to the topic at hand. So you have to speak to the person in a way that they're going to understand what you're talking about. They're not going to get it if you're throwing out terminology that's specific to your industry. So keep that in mind. Make it simple. I believe it's a 3rd grade level you're supposed to write to. So if my daughter's going into 3rd grade after this summer. So if my daughter can't understand the blogs that we're going to start producing, we're going to have to go back and say, okay, let's see what we can do. So we have to make sure it's speaking to that person. And then you also have to make sure that next step is something that's going to drive a conversion. So while another blog post is a nice next step to kind of keep them moving, if they've already been doing a lot of research, you also have to give them an ebook, something that they can download that says, the ultimate guide to installing, to what happens for a tile installation from A to Z. Oh, okay, everything I need to know is going to be in this book. I will give you my email address for that because it's going to be something that's valuable to me. So That is called a conversion. That's the holy grail. At the end of this blog, you need to have a call to action. It can be a little box, it can be text, and then you click on it and land on a landing page with a form.
To what extent are you experimenting with chat? Because there's definitely a group, and it's growing inside of the marketing community, that is arguing the form is dead. That's the basic hypothesis, saying, look, like, your form doesn't do anything for you. People know the game now. They know they're going to get contact. They fill something out. And then, you have businesses like Drift, for example, who make a pretty compelling case for this. They say, look, your website is like having a store where you're screaming out loud saying, like, hey, come check out the store, check out the store, check out the store. And then someone's like, okay, cool, I'll check out your store, meaning that's your website visitor. And then they get inside, meaning they fill out the form, and there's nobody there. There's nobody inside the store to actually talk about the products, the services, so on and so forth. So their whole premise is, look, when someone fills out a form, they're expecting to get contact in some way, shape, or form. But the reality is most businesses take at least 2 days or more to actually follow up with a form submission, which is a horrible customer experience. So their whole argument, which is tied back to the product that they sell, is website chat. So just curious, to what extent are you experimenting with this at Prospect Builder, or are your clients experimenting with it, like as an alternative? Not as an alternative to blogging by any means, because that's still pulling people in and getting their attention through answering the questions they're asking. But in terms of that conversion point, are you starting to experiment with alternative conversions outside of the classic call to action tied to a landing page with a form?
You're jumping way ahead, but we'll go there anyway. So yes, we at Prospect Builder right now do have Drift, and we're using it. And so our VP of Sales is able to answer real-time questions, and he has gotten them, and he has gotten conversations out of them, because it's a less intrusive way to ask questions and not feel like you're going to be peppered with 1,000 emails afterwards. Like, you fill out a form now and you just know.
Yeah.
I'm going to get a bunch of emails. So this is a great way to just kind of take that out and take the buyer to a more comfortable place.
Right.
We have a customer that they're launching their website in the next week. And so we're going to be using HubSpot's new Messages app. And so what that's going to enable us to do, I know you're like, yay. We'll see how it compares to Drift.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Doesn't have the Slack integration, which I'm very disappointed about. I'll still give Drift the nod there.
Yes, I will say that. So what Brian is talking about for the folks on Facebook as well as live on the podcast is Drift is a messaging app you can install on your website. And somebody has asked a question, and Slack is an internal tool that we use. Now it's used in so many different ways. It's a chat tool. It's a regular chat tool between teams. So like I have a team set up for HubSpot partners so that I'm able, I can go back and forth with the head of the HubSpot program if I have questions. Other partners are messaging. My team is messaging in there, and there's different channels, so you can organize it. So it can be like, here's this client. We're talking about this client. And then we can go to another channel and talk about that client and say, not talk about them, you know what I mean. But talk.
Give me the latest gossip on all your clients.
Give me the latest gossip.
Need somebody to wake me up.
I know, right? But no, talk about what's happening with them, the ROI that we're experiencing with them. But Drift has an integration with Slack. So I get a notification that somebody has asked a question on our website via Drift, which is the messaging app, and it pops up in Slack. Now, that's really important because if the VP of Sales is not sitting there, he's away, like he was at a conference the past couple days, I could go in and I could answer that person right there live. And I wouldn't have known otherwise because I don't have the messaging app. I'm not in the messaging app all the time, Drift, but he is, my salesperson is. So it's actually, that's really cool. So hopefully HubSpot works on that and finds a way to do that integration, because that would be key. But yes, we have a client and they get a lot of communication through their current chat tool, but they can't capture it. So now with HubSpot and their messaging app, we're going to have, because these guys are going on the COS, Content Optimization System, HubSpot will be hosting their website, and the messaging app will pop up. can I help you? Somebody can ask a question, and I believe it asks for their email address in case there's a communication mishap or something. Kind of the same thing when you call in to any credit card or whatever. What's the best number to call you back at? Or Apple, every time I call Apple. First, what's the best number to call you back at? So that's how you capture their email address. And then once they've given you that, you have all of the same visibility on the back end of HubSpot to see what they do moving forward. Plus, it backfills everything that they have looked at in the past on your website. So, but you can real time, live, have a conversation online and be able to and that's the next step is, okay, like what kinds of questions are we getting? Do we have canned responses we can have available for the people monitoring the chat to say, well, if they ask this question, answer it like this, and then offer this resource, because then you're being helpful. Right. It's all about being helpful. And that could be a blog. So we're back to blog.
Right. But, so I'm sorry, I got us totally off topic. So back
it's
to
a good one,
best
though.
Practices for blogging. I got, pick the topic, make sure it's educational, make sure you have a clear next step and a call to action. So I apologize for breaking the chain.
No, it's all good.
But keep hit me with the next best practice.
Okay, so now we're going to get into actually what it's going to look like when you're building this out. So when you pick your topic, you want to have a working title because you want to know what it's basically going to be about, and then you want to write it, and you might have to go back and say, well, this is actually going to be a title that's going to work really well. And you should be spending probably half the amount of time that it took you to write that blog should be spent trying to come up with the best title. Yeah, okay, because you want...
It's a pretty shocking.
That's
it's a pretty shocking number when people hear that for the first time. But I guarantee you that if you've ever written blog content or tried to write blog content, and you've had a blog post that you've slaved over and spent like a few hours on or more in some cases,
right?
Just to find that you get like 10 views over the course of like a couple of months, that's crushing.
It is crushing, and it's happened to us.
And